My latest episode didn't begin the way I intended. I was preparing to record an episode about attention, state, breath, and the moment before a pattern begins to dictate how we respond. I had my camera set up, I was preparing my microphone, and I had the intention for what I wanted to share. And then, as we do, I got distracted. I had forgotten to turn off the notifications on my phone. I looked at it, my attention moved, and in that small moment of distraction, I didn't realize that my audio was not connected to the microphone I intended to use. At first, I thought I would cut out the beginning. The sound was not what I wanted. The moment wasn't polished. I wasn't fully ready. And yet, what happened before I began speaking became the teaching itself. Because before I had entered the episode, I thought I was going to record. I met my current state. And I noticed how quickly my mind tried to bypass what my body was asking me to feel. There was pressure in my face, pressure in my temples, pressure in my jaw, pressure behind my eyes, tightness in my throat, tension in my neck and shoulders. And even though I wasn't clenching, my face felt as if it was clenching. My body was speaking through sensation, not words. And this is where I noticed something important. My mind wanted to understand it immediately. It wanted to explain the feeling. It wanted to make a logical sense of something that was not logical in nature. Something energetic was moving through my body. Mind was trying to interrupt the process by turning it into a story too soon. This is something many of us do. We feel something uncomfortable, and almost immediately the mind enters. It analyzes, it searches for meaning, it looks for the memory, the reason, the person, the wound, the explanation. And sometimes understanding does come. But most of the time, the body is not asking for an explanation. Most of the time, the body is asking for space. What I met in that moment was not a thought first. It was sensation. It was residue, a memory in the body, a pattern, an old association with pain, connection, and who I thought I needed to be in order to feel close to others. But if I had tried to make sense of it too quickly, I would have interrupted the release. That is something I have had to learn very slowly. The body doesn't process the way the mind explains. The body doesn't always need words to complete what was interrupted. Sometimes it needs breath. Sometimes it needs touch. Sometimes it needs stillness. Sometimes it needs tears. Sometimes it needs time. And for me, in that moment, it needed slowness. I placed my hand on my body. I breathed. I allowed myself to feel the pressure without needing to fix it. I allowed my body to do what it already knew how to do. And after the release, there was more space. The pain in my face softened. The pressure behind my eyes eased. My throat felt more open. There was still some tension in my neck and my shoulders, but something had moved, not because I figured it out, but because I stopped getting in the way. This is one of the deeper realizations I continue to return to. The body is the instrument of perception. The mind interprets. The mind narrates. The mind tries to create meaning. But the body is how we perceive life. The senses are not secondary. They are not something to overcome. They are a part of the intelligence we have been so disconnected from. So much of what we call awakening is not about escaping the body. It's about returning to it. This is the inward journey. This is what I call involution before evolution. It's about remembering why the senses exist. It's about learning how attention communicates with the body. It is about recognizing that attention is not just something we focus on or focus with. Attention is where we invest our life force. And for many of us, that life force has been misdirected for a very, very long time. Through conditioning, through fear, through inherited beliefs, through trauma, through ideas planted in the mind before we had the awareness to question them. We begin to identify with thoughts that were never truly ours, especially the unkind ones, the ones that speak to us with cruelty, the ones that tell us who we are, the ones that keep us disconnected from our body, from truth, from the deeper intelligence that does not speak in the same language as the mind. One of my greatest disillusionments was realizing how many thoughts I had believed without ever questioning where they came from. Not because I was foolish, but because I had been conditioned to live through and in my mind. The process of returning to the body is slow. And I know that slowness doesn't always sell. We live in a world of hacks, quick transformations, spiritual identities, third eye openings, techniques, and promises of transcendence. But the body cannot be bypassed. The body cannot be forced into awakening. The body cannot be rushed into safety. The body requires care. It requires patience. It requires conditions that many of us were never given. Peace, slowness, safety, space, presence, love. And this kind of safety is not the same as the comfort the ego asks for. This is not about avoiding difficult experiences or protecting an identity. This is about creating the conditions where the body no longer has to brace against life. Because the body will not allow attention to gather if the body feels unsafe. This is why I speak about attention so much, not as a mental exercise, not as control, not as discipline in the harsh way we have been taught to understand it, but as a remembering, a gathering, a return. The practice is not to create a stronger mindset. The practice is not to control every thought. The practice is not to build a new spiritual identity. The practice is to notice where attention goes, to notice what pulls it away, to notice when fear disconnects us from our body, to notice when the mind tries to bypass feeling by explaining what the body has not yet had the time or space to process, and then gently to return to our breath, to sensation, to your body, to our senses, to what is actually happening now. This is why I chose to share the beginning of the episode. Not because it is perfect. It is not perfect. The audio is not what I intended. The beginning is super vulnerable. The process isn't polished. But what it is honest. And I feel there is value in showing the process, not just speaking about it afterward. Because being spiritual doesn't mean we no longer meet human moments. It doesn't mean we no longer feel pain, pressure, emotion, confusion, or old patterns moving through the body. It means we begin to meet those moments very differently, with less force, with less resistance, with less need to turn everything into a story before the body has had a chance to speak. So as you watch this episode, I invite you to notice the teaching beneath the words. Notice the pause. Notice the breath. Notice the impulse to explain. Notice the return to the body. And maybe as you listen, you can ask yourself, where does my attention go when something uncomfortable begins to rise? Do I stay with my body? Or do I move too quickly into the mind? There is no judgment in the noticing. The noticing is the doorway. Your body isn't asking you to transcend it. It's asking you to listen.